Most agents chase leads. Sandra Rathe attracts them. With $135 million in annual sales, Sandra's mastered geographic farming with innovative, outside-the-box marketing that turns neighborhoods into gold mines. Sandra shares exactly how she blends creative branding, intentional client experiences, and precise market positioning to dominate every geographic farm. Ready to level up your listings by thinking differently, farming smarter, and standing out in a crowded market? Let's dive into the secrets of a top-tier real estate professional with Sandra Rathe. All right, so we are here with Sandra Rathe, and we are excited to have her with us. You already heard her mind-blowing intro and how she's dominating Broward County. And first of all, Sandra, I'm just excited to have you on here. Thank you for joining us on the Listing Beast podcast and sharing all of your knowledge nuggets with our audience. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you, Brandon. I'm super happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, Sandra, we were chatting earlier, and what I'm so excited about is on our Listing Beast podcast, we break down the inner workings of how to be an elite listing agent and how to either build a team or just, create an individual business. And we break it into three categories, and we talk about delivering an exceptional seller experience so we can get paid what we're worth, number one. Number two, database conversion. And you have a 60,000 person database, so you've definitely had some experience in database conversion. And then why we're so excited to have you with us is talking about listing lead funnels, right? Where do you get listing leads from? And you have built a very wonderful geographic farm, or you do farming, and also build it from referrals. So we're going to start with, if you're okay with this, with the geographic farming, if that's the right word. Maybe you call it even something cooler. But talk to us about how you've sold. I mean, again, we're talking 135 million plus in volume. How do you do that from farming? What's been that experience?
Yeah, so I started off in farming. When I first got into real estate 15 years ago, I was trying to figure out what to do. You do all the things, right? I did crazy stuff, answering Trulia questions and doing open houses for other agents and not getting paid. I did all the things. And I said, well, what can I do that is similar to my previous career? So I was an accountant before. And I said, I had processes and procedures. So that's kind of what led me to farming, because farming really it's a routine. It can be a little boring, let's be honest, right? It's for the people that want to do consistency, the same thing over and over and over. So you have a plan every single month, you know what you're doing.
And
so
how did you start? Like, how did you just go, when you got into real estate, you're like, some people are making cold calls. You were talking about Trulia. Some people are all over social media. Did you kind of look at it and go, I just vibe with this more consistent strategic play? Like, how did you land on farming?
Yeah. So like I said, I did all the things, and you can't scatter too much, right? So then you have to, at some point, decide, okay, what is my one thing? What is that going to look like? And I read a lot of books. I read the MREA. I was constantly trying to learn to figure out, how do I get this thing kickstarted? And somebody had mentioned, do a newsletter. And I said, you know what? Actually, I used to get this thing from an agent on my front door years ago, and I loved reading it because it had the stats of the neighborhood. And I said, well, why don't I try that? Literally, the first one I sent out, I got a listing from, which is not the norm, the norm. But that was enough to feed the fire. And so I started at that point. Kind of a funny story, how I really started doing it. I would go to my office at 3:00 in the morning, and I would print in the middle of the night, because you can't print 1,800 newsletters during the day, because the agents will kill you, because you're using the printer all day long. So I'd go to the office at 3:00 in the morning, print it, and then drive home exhausted after like 4 hours of printing. And then go home. It was in black and white. It was nothing fancy, but it was from the heart. It was literally written by me, about my experiences, about what I'm experiencing in real estate, the pros, the cons, the downfalls, all the things. I would just write it from my perspective. I'd even include things like, go to this local park. I just took my kids there. It was amazing. And then I would take it with me everywhere I went, folding them, getting them ready to put on the front doors. And then I would rollerblade around, and I hand delivered them to 1,856 homes every month.
1800. So I've heard people talk about this before and they call it a letter of the heart. Is that what you refer to it as, or have you heard that phrase?
I have not heard that phrase, but I would say that that's a good name for it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So how did you decide on the amount, the quantity, when you said 1850?
56. 1800.
1856. So you knew it to that exact number. How did you decide on the area, the quantity, and what was that decision that was made?
Yeah. So, given my accounting background, pretty much everything I do is very analytical.
Mm.
So, I sat down and I said, okay, what neighborhoods are of interest to me? And I made a list of the neighborhoods that I was familiar with. I was fairly new to South Florida. I'd only been here a couple of years. I had no family. My kids were really little, so they weren't even all in school yet. I didn't have a big sphere of influence. So this was really starting from scratch. And so the neighborhoods that I knew, I made a list and I actually went into the MLS and I looked up what is the turnover rate, how many houses sold in that neighborhood. And so I did all the stats. And then I also looked at things like, is it guard gated? Can I get into the community easily? Can I not get in? Is there solicitation rules that means I can't door knock or I do certain things? Were there agents that were already owning the community? So I looked at all of those things, all of the analysis that you could do to make a good decision. And it's funny because when I started that analysis, I kept telling everybody, I'm not doing my neighborhood because there's already an agent in there. The original builder's agent was still there. And I was like, she owns the neighborhood. Well, guess what? She did not own the neighborhood. She had a lot of marketing, but she wasn't getting the business. And so when I ran the stats and I figured out she had a few sales, but she didn't own it. And all of the statistics actually were favorable to the neighborhood I lived in, which was great. It worked out that way. But it wasn't just a whim. It was measurements and numbers that made me make that decision.
Yeah. Again, like you said, the accounting background gave you that analytical data perspective to look at it. So then you go, okay, so if I want to start and be a geographic farmer and start going this route, first, you're telling everyone, do a lot of research, right? You got to start with the research, make sure that they're detailed in understanding this. Because me and you were chatting earlier, and I asked, well, why don't you do certain areas? And you laid some of those out, like if they're in a gated community, because you're in South Florida. So some people hear this and they're like, gated community. Like I think in our area we have like 2 gated communities in the entire vast area of the Front Range of Denver. And so when people hear gated community, like I was telling you, I used to live and sell in Naples. Like everything's gated, right? Not everything, but there's a lot of gated communities because it's country clubs and retirement areas and over 55 and all that. So you decided to exclude gated, right? Because you're going, even if I send the mailer, I couldn't stop by and knock on the door, or were you still including gated, or was there a decision on that?
I included gated, but I was looking at, let's say if I had 2 things that were even and I had no access to the community, then it would make more sense to do a different community that I had access to.
Gotcha.
And it just worked out that it happened to be the one I lived in that I decided to do. But having access played a part, but actually the turnover rates and the number of units that we're selling at the time that I started, there was about 120 sales per year in that community, which at 10%, if I had only a 10% market share, I would still get, 12 homes a year.
And that's the great numbers there is, I mean, and looking at that 10%, turnover, when you started to look at this, where you kind of ended up on your own neighborhood, I've talked to some people where they go, I've kind of regretted farming my own neighborhood because I feel like I can't really live there because everyone knows me. Like, how do you feel about that? Is it weird that like you see people and they're like, oh, it's Sandra, the real estate agent? Does that give you any kind of, I mean, any thoughts there?
Yeah. So a couple things. I'll tell you that. So in the beginning, I mentioned that I was rollerblading around and my kids were little, but they would help me. And like you'd see us this trail, me and these 3 little kids, they were running or rollerblading. I mean, it was really quite a show. Sometimes there were bloody knees, there was crying.
Sure.
One time we got bit by a dog, all the things. Yeah. And it's funny because people saw me literally sweating, maybe with bloody knees, kids crying, everything. But people remember that. Even to this day, people, if I run into somebody, they'll say, I remember when you and your kids did this. And I mean, I look terrible, but people loved it. They loved the grit. They loved seeing the hard work. They loved seeing that my kids were part of it. So while I think some people would look at that as a negative, being seen that like that, and maybe feeling like you were doing labor because I didn't have the money to pay for it, but people loved it. People actually, I think, had more appreciation for me because of seeing me do that.
Yeah, it made you very authentic, right, to them, I'm sure, and very, like you said, grit is a great word there and respected. And so now let's move and talk to, so you said, I guess, so it started with newsletter, but really letter from the heart. And how did you start to get leads from it? How did that next part happen after we started mailing? Was it QR code? Was it at the beginning a phone number and they just called you? How did you start turning this into listing appointments?
Yeah, it was mostly a phone call. Back then, I don't even know what a QR code was. Sure. I don't know when they started, but I just sure didn't have any QR codes. I mean, I was in black and white and I was printing it myself, right? So yes, I would put things in trying to give some calls to action. So offering free market analysis, offering to come and, help you prepare your house for sale. I can help you dispute your taxes, like anything and everything real estate related that I was capable of doing. I would do an article, each month it was different, but I would put an article in, like, I'll help you with this, or a story about how I helped another person with XYZ. So it was showing them my expertise and giving them reasons to call me. And it wasn't always about, can you come list my house? But that's how it would start is, hey, I might want to do this remodel. What do you think for resale value? Great. Call me all day long with that question. I am happy to answer. I'm happy to get in your house, see your house, develop the relationship. And then if you don't sell for 10 years, I'm still here.
I love it. And when we're looking at the economics of, I guess, and we'll go where it was then and we're going to get to where it is now. So I'm looking at this and I'm just grabbing my calculator. I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So when you started with 1856, you're printing it off in black and white on the copy machine. So we're probably talking, I don't know, 5 cents a copy, 2 cents a copy, whatever it is. And was the frequency once a month? Was the frequency twice a month? What was the frequency looking like? Meaning, how many times did you deliver?
Yeah, once a month.
Once a month. Okay, perfect.
It's always been, and I started this in the beginning of 2010, January of 2010, all the way to now. The original farm area has gotten a newsletter every single month for 15 years, except for one, because the press was shut down by Hurricane Irma.
My gosh. So the saturation is there. I mean, obviously. When did I know you got, like you said, the results kind of happened maybe early for you. I think the fear with most people when they talk about farming is they're just going, I've got to make this investment and then kind of hope and pray that somebody's going to call. And then they get so analytical of going, well, I must not be sending something good. I'm not getting the calls. Do you think is it a balance of quality and quantity, or would you recommend to someone new doing this that it's a lot more quantity than quality?
Wow, that's a great question. And I'm going to say it's a balance of both. And I will say, so we started off with that one farm area and we're now in 6 different farm areas. And we've been in farm areas that we tried and it didn't work and we moved on. So we've kind of been through the success of it. It kicked off the first month. And then I've had my philosophy is that we do it for 6 months. Anything that I do in my business, whether it's farming or something else, it's a 6-month commitment. If we're going to try it, we're going to go all in and we're going to see if we can make it work. And at the end of 6 months, we reevaluate and decide, do we keep going? So I've had situations where we did the whole 6 months, nothing happened. No, not a peep, nothing happened. So then we stopped. During the pandemic, I wanted to move to a higher price point. So we started a luxury area and it didn't kick off right away, but the pandemic was a little weird, right? Like people were listing with their best friend because of the relationship instead of going with a professional because they didn't want to risk getting COVID,
Right.
it was strange times. And so we were getting phone calls, but they weren't turning into true listing appointments. So like we knew it was working. We knew people were reading it, and we knew that people were in a relationship with us, but they just weren't ready to hit the button. And it took about 8 months before we got the first listing, but I saw it coming. So once I felt that it was gonna get there, I kept doing it and spending the money. And now I think that farm makes more money than the original farm because the price point is so high.
Excellent. And that leads to a great question there, Sandra. And thank you for being so open about all this. Is I think a lot of people get caught up on the analytics of deciding on that price point. They're like, well, I'm a new agent and I live in said neighborhood and it's got average sales price of said. And I watch agents and they'll start dumping money on a high-end neighborhood. And I watch this all the time because they're going, I really want to dominate XYZ neighborhood because I mean, all you got to do is sell one. Right, you sell one, you get a $60,000 commission. So, what advice would you share with them in making that decision? And it doesn't sound like you made like a massive jump. You went, hey, my average farm price is I don't know 500,000, and I decided to go to a $3 million neighborhood. What would you tell them?
I would say you have to be ready for it. So at one point, I have so many farming stories. I could talk all day long about it. At one point when I was in production and doing most of the farming, I added the neighborhood that I just mentioned, that it took 8 months to start. So I started doing that neighborhood, but I didn't like it because the activities changed. So the first neighborhood was a little more hands off, like you could put a lockbox on. It was just a little easier. And then the new neighborhood in the higher price point, people expected you to show up for every showing. They wanted you to be there. They expected more things out of you. And while it was great, it took off the first time that I did it. It took off right away. I got a listing the first month that I started. Then I got a second listing and a third listing, but I wasn't happy. I didn't enjoy it because my kids were in sports. They were doing all these things. And now my clients were really needy. And I felt like I couldn't do everything. So at that point, I actually stopped and I went back to another neighborhood that was closer to my first farm and expanded there. So you have to be ready for it, I think is the bottom line. And then fast forward 5 years later, when we started doing it again, I have a listing partner who he was the one going, and now it's amazing. We're all super happy, but the dynamics of the team have changed. So
I
now
love
we
that. Yeah, if you're sitting here trying to do agent accompanied showings, you've got three little ones. You know the money's there, but like you said, if it's miserable and and that price point of client is just wanting you to be, as you said, on demand,
yeah.
it can get exhausting. So I think that's a great way of explaining it to everyone so they can understand that like it's got to be comfort. Right? You got to feel comfortable with where you're at. I think that's a big piece. You've got to feel like it's an area you want to work. I guess tell us because you said when you said some of these you decided to pull out of them. When you decided not to move forward with a farm, you tested it for 6 months. So we're talking, let's just make simple numbers. You did 1,000 mailers a month for 6 months. So 6,000 went out. And what's your expectation of return in starting that first 6 months? Is it 10 phone calls, one deal? Like how do you make that analysis, or is it more feel? How do you decide if it's time to sink it or swim more with it?
Yeah. So I think that in general, like if you were to take the hard numbers, you should be getting one listing a month. So for us,
Mm,
that's so the cover of the newsletter is always a new listing. So that is the goal. That's kind of the measure that we need to have is one new listing per month. Now, of course, some months you get two and some months you get none, but on average, you should have a minimum of one new one per month, and that goes on the cover. So you've kind of created a system. You've created the one thing is I've got to have one new listing per month. So I get close to the end of the month and I don't have a new listing. What do? I have to go pound the pavement. I have to go call every single person I know in that neighborhood. So I've created the motivation for myself or my agent or whoever's in charge of that farm to go do the work. And there's no exception. Like that is the rule. That is what you have to do.
yeah, so it's not just send out the mailer and go hope and pray. It's like send out the mailer, hope, and then if it doesn't happen, we're hitting the streets.
Yep. You're
I
picking
love
up the
that.
phone, you're making phone calls. We might add in an extra postcard in between things if things are slow and we need to get a listing. We'll throw out some postcards to the same farm. We've done, as we started a few other farms, we did a few small events. We're not huge event people, but we'll do like a big client appreciation event every year. But we did some micro events for the subdivisions that we were doing because we were trying to get it kickstarted because we were sending it out, not getting anything. So we started doing some micro events and now they're crushing it in those neighborhoods.
That's amazing. And then talking about the, I guess, logistics of it. So, are you doing like every door direct mail? Are you trying to bulk mail these? We know you started with the printing machine and then either hand delivering them on rollerblades or, starting to put a stamp on them. How do we, well, let's tell the audience now where you're at. Cause I mean, how much is going out a month now?
Yeah. How much is going out a month now? We are probably at about 50,000 newsletters now.
Wow.
Maybe
A month.
45,000 a month. Yeah. So because we have 6 farms. And so it's interesting because what's beautiful about farming is once you've mastered it, you can pick that process up and move it somewhere else. So like you've got your system and your process and everything that you're doing on a monthly basis, now just replicate it somewhere else.
You can scale.
And so
you can
scale.
Yeah.
For example, earlier this year, I was talking to my top agent and I'm like, okay, how do we get more? Because of course things have slowed down a little bit, right? And things are taking longer to sell. So how do we get more without having to do more? Meaning without having to spend a lot more, having to spend twice as much effort. And the light bulb went off. Let's just expand the newsletters that we have, because if we do a whole nother farm, now we're writing another newsletter. We're doing more articles and learning more. So we just took some of the farms we had and we said, what makes sense to blow that up even more?
And why,
So
you mean more and more frequency of more going out to the same amount of houses or more houses?
More houses.
More houses. Just want to make sure. Yep. Okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, because it's funny. I just had Will Van Wickler on. I don't know if you've ever seen Will, but he does the golden letters. And he said the same thing. He goes, the frequency of his golden letters before he could send out 300 and he'd usually get a listing appointment. He's like, now I have to send out 1,000. He's like, the economics are still there. I still usually get 1 or 2 listings from 1,000 golden letters with the rest of his process. But he goes, it was so simple for me to think about just scaling it. And he goes, when the market shifts, will it go back down again? Or do I need to send out more frequency or figure out all of this? Have you changed the reason I say that story is I asked him, I go, have you ever looked at changing the messaging on the letter? Have you gotten a lot further away from going newsletter, 1 listing on the front? Like, has that evolved much? I mean, of course, with QR codes and all this, or are you just going, I'm sure it's probably not black and white any longer, or maybe it is, I don't know. but right, like, are you sitting there like in the workshop going, if we move this there and have a recipe card there and we have a community event there, is it that kind of strategy? Or is it just, we got a format, get it done, provide value and see what happens?
Yeah. So there's definitely some things that are very standard. Over the years, over 15 years, we've done a little bit of revamping just to make it more modern as we go along. But the general layout is the same. It's always a new house on the front. The back is always what we have listed, sold, or pending. So that way they see what we've been doing. And we try to tailor each newsletter to that neighborhood or houses close by, or maybe also feature feeder systems. So let's say people in Sunset Lakes are going to move to Davie, so we'll put the Davie houses on the Sunset Lakes one. So we're creating synergies between the two. Because we know the patterns of where people are moving in our area, where they're moving from and to locally. So we would do that. I'm not a big, there's no recipes. There's none of that fluff. It's articles about the area, about the neighborhood. But again, trying to pull a personal perspective, not into every single article, but a lot of them. Like, I want people to know what I stand for, who I am. They all know, they've seen pictures of my kids. I've included my kids. I've congratulated my kids for graduations on the newsletter, and all the other people in the neighborhood that graduated. My kids would, when they were little, we would volunteer at the 4th of July event, and they'd get a star place in the newsletter for that.
Yeah, they've gotten to know you over the amount of frequency, and some of them have seen your kids grow up and graduate, right? I mean, they've seen them go all the way up. And then just so for the audience, 8.5 by 11 front and back. Is that the standard?
So it's an 11 by 14.
11 by 14.
That's folded in half. So it's basically four full-size pages, 4 sides of a full-size page.
Gotcha. Excellent. Okay. So, and then anything else besides that, as far as mailers that are going out? Are we doing just listed, just solds? Are we doing anything else? Or is it just this newsletter is just the main mechanism that's so powerful? Is there any other direct mailers that go out?
Yeah, the newsletter is the main thing. And then maybe twice a year, we'll do a postcard in between. No more than 4 times a year per farm. So maybe once a quarter. And sometimes we don't do them at all. Like during the pandemic, we didn't do them at all because we were so busy. We didn't need more business.
Which is a good place to be. And then just for the economics of it, what's the cost per piece? And I know I kind of skipped over the EDDM and how you're structuring it. If you were to go tactical with us, and again, just try to understand, I want to send 1,000. How much is it going to cost me to send 1,000? And how can I send 1,000? Maybe knowing what to not cost me $1,000 or whatever the dollar amount is.
Yeah. So price per piece, I don't have that off the top of my head, but we can always calculate it. Sure. So the way that it works is you're going to pay a printer, and they usually do batch processing. So like my printer, he does batches of 2,500 or 5,000. So even if you only send out 1,000, you're still going to pay for 2,500. Okay. So that's when you have to make a decision of, okay, what do I do with all these extras? Do I want to add more routes or just throw a bunch away? So we're always looking at, okay, can we add another route that will absorb some of that so that we get more for the money that we spent on printing? And then you're going to increase your postage. So like a neighborhood of about 1,856, which goes to more than that because of the way the routes are laid out. So I'll cover the entire neighborhood, and then one route bleeds over to another neighborhood, which I call that like the extra bonus, because we'll get a listing in there maybe twice a year. Sure. So it's like a little bonus baby, right?
I love it. I love it. I love how your eyes light up about this subject. It's so great to see it. I love it.
I'm probably one of the only weird ones that gets excited about farming.
No, but I mean, because it's your business. You figured out your MOFR, right? Your make offers for immediate response, and you're what I hope everyone out there hears is you're obsessed with it, right? In a good way, and that's a good thing to be about. Instead of just going, we tried some mailers, we didn't get that much of a response. We never really thought about improving it anymore. I mean, the science in it is why you're having so much massive success, and you're dominating Broward County and continuing to grow. So I just, like I said, I respect it, and I think it's really cool. So sorry, a lot in there, but so we're going to the printers. We have overage. You don't just go, well, because there was overage, I just don't send it. I'm still sending it to. How are you pulling the list then? You're going, if it's 5,000, cards, or sorry, 2,500, the neighborhood's only 1,800, you're using real list tax or the tax records to figure out what the overage goes to?
So you go into EDDM on the USPS website, and you can map out, you click on it, and it'll tell you where all the houses are that route goes to. You have to send one to every single house on the route. So I can't say only send it to the ones in Sunset Lakes or Davie. I have to say send it to everybody on Route A1A. Yeah,
they show you on the website like this drawing of where that mailman or mailwoman goes, or mail person. I don't know what I'm supposed to say anymore, but wherever that person goes, right? And you kind of see that route. So that's why the numbers might be off. There might be a neighborhood that has 500, but the route doesn't go solely in that one neighborhood.
You got it. Yep.
Gotcha. Just want to make sure I understood. And just to slow this down for everyone. So when we're saying EDDM, you're talking the United States Postal Service website for every door direct mail. And the reason you decided to go that route, because we see all these companies that are pitching us online all the time going, I won't name a company because they'll probably get mad at me, but, Vistaprint, I'll just use them because they're huge. They're not going to care. Right. And you go to Vistaprint and you're going, okay, well, I can do a mailer through them, but you're paying premium for the delivery, right? The reason you're going EDDM is because explain that. Why did you decide to do U.S. Postal Service EDDM?
Yeah, because it's the cheapest way to do it. 100% the cheapest way. People get a little frustrated because you can't pick and choose. I can't say send it to Sally, but not George. It's got to go to everybody in the area. You do have the option to exclude somebody, but I highly doubt that they're actually excluding somebody because they're just sticking one in every mailbox. They're not reading anything. They're just sticking it in the mailbox.
And the last time that I looked at the economics of it, I mean, you can almost get it down to like, I don't want to quote this, but maybe the prices have gone up a little bit more, but like 19 cents a piece is kind of like what I've heard. Like I know we were talking about the economics, and I know you're so big now, you're probably like, somebody manages all that for me, which is great. But I mean, we're talking like substantially cheaper, not like kind of reduced cost, right? It's substantial, but you, just like what you figured out, you got to set it all up and plan it and do all this. And I think that's where a lot of agents just stop, Sandra, they just go, it sounds too complicated. And we know it's it's not, I don't think it's complicated. Like we've done it. We've had agents in our organization that have done it. It's just, it's not like you can do it in 10 minutes, right? You got to have some thought. You got to have a plan. You got to have a strategy to execute it. So do you think that's what protects you from so many others doing it, is your accounting brain is going, I get this, and that's why, or are people just lazy?
I think that I think people, especially salespeople, have a hard time doing repetitive things, because it's boring, right? And all these other shiny objects get in the way. So it's easy to say, I'm going to do that next week. And then next week comes and then you're pushing it out again. And most people don't like writing. They don't want to take the time to write a newsletter. They get stuck. It's kind of like that school, term paper that you keep putting off and putting off. The problem is, if you put it off too many times, now you're into the next month, and now you've lost the momentum that you have had. And I've seen that. I've seen some of my agents that have tried to take a new farm area, and if they're not consistent, the results are not there. Right. So you can't be missing months. And I think it's just very hard for people to be consistent and be doing all the other things, selling and working with people. So I think it's a process that has to be created.
And what I think what you really said is, it's not just mail, it's mail plus ground and pound, or however you said, hitting the streets or whatever it is. It's just going, again, you can with enough, I guess budget, you could just flood this thing, but it's going, you test it. If you're not getting the results, then you put, willpower behind it and grit behind it. And then if you still don't have the results, then you can still do it for 5 more months and then make a decision and maybe go, maybe this area is not working for me. But I think people go, I send out 1,000. I watch people do it with golden letters. They hear Will's thing and they go, 22 years old. He's about 23, whatever. He's making all this money. They do it. They do one mailer. They do 300 of them. They don't get a single appointment. And what do? The next day they're at an open house, doing open houses or doing something totally different. And so I think you're an inspiration to make sure people understand that, it's consistency and it's grit. And then and give yourself a lot of, kudos too, is it's math, right? Because there's a whole economic level to it, right? Like you factored that going for this many mailers, I should be producing at least one listing a month. If it's not performing, I got to make a judgment call to cut it at some point, right? Or if it's really working well, then I just know I'm onto the right thing. Like you're not going to go from 1 mailer a month to 2 mailers a month, right? You can't really push more. Does that make sense? Like you can't get more from doing more frequency, or can you?
I think that there probably is some benefit to doing it more frequently. And that's, again, weighing the cost benefit analysis and saying, does it make sense? It really just adds a whole nother layer of amount of work that you're doing, especially with the newsletter. A postcard is a lot easier to put together. You can have somebody do that in a short period of time and get that out. So that's why we will add in the postcard if we feel things are slower, but we'd never add another newsletter because it's too much work that goes into writing it.
Gotcha. That helps me a lot. And this made me think too, what I'm so impressed about what you're doing is, we talk about it with our Listing Beast, members and podcasts and episodes is, you want to own your lead generation funnel. You don't want to rent it from someone else. What I mean is we have a lot of agents out there that are renting leads from Zillow Flex or from realtor.com. No one can take this away from you. You own your lead gen. And like you said, you can replicate it in another area. Now you're building this amazing team and have not now, but have been building an amazing team and had an amazing team. And now they get to reap the benefits of this groundwork that you've laid instead of so many else out there going, I want to build a team. I'm going to just start dumping $1,000 a month on Zillow leads or XYZ. It's not just Zillow, but homes.com, whatever it is. You own this business. No one can take it from you. Someone else can try to come into that neighborhood. And have you had competitors come in and try to like out market you? And like, I'm sure there's other people that are, you're not the only one farming in these neighborhoods, right? Do you ever go, well, oh no, Susie's trying to infiltrate our area and we got to slash her tires. Like what happens when somebody tries to, I'm just joking.
Okay, no tire slashing.
Just joking. Like what happens when, right? Because there's enough market share, right? That's what people don't also realize. Like what happens when someone else starts marketing in your area?
Yeah. So it's happened many times over the years. And it's funny because when it starts, you get a little nervous, right? You get that little pit in your stomach and you wait 3 months and they've stopped. It's just so few people that keep it going. And I mean, I've seen people do some beautiful things, like really nice newsletters, but they can't keep it going. And so they quit. There's like one other agent that I know in one of my areas that is consistent. Other than that, I haven't seen anybody keep the consistency.
It is the actual turtle in the hare story, right? It's like they come out running real fast and then they go, oh, whatever. And then it's just like slow and steady and consistent. That's amazing. Well, I can't wait to have you back on because I only got through like 50 of my questions and I have like a million more. And I think everyone else is going to have so many questions as well. But we're going to move in for time to respect your time that you shared with us so generously. We're going to move into our beast mode segment where we have some fun here and we go into our MODE acronym. And so the first one, Sandra, is your most memorable listing appointment. So I'm sure you've been on some interesting ones. What's been your most memorable listing appointment you've ever been on?
Yeah, it's funny that you're asking me that now. I actually went on a listing appointment with one of my agents recently because it was a gentleman who has 10 acres of land, which is kind of a big deal. It's a $6.3 million listing. And so I went with my agent. He really wanted to meet me. The marketing on this is going to be super important. And so I went on the appointment and I just loved the guy. He reminded me a lot of my dad. And he's like this older guy. I'm going to say he's in his 80s and he's just so full of life and so full of stories and entrepreneurial. And it was a joy to listen to him and to walk the property with him and to see the passion in his heart about the land. He does not want a developer to buy the land. He wants to sell it to somebody who's going to love the land. It's going to be interesting, but it was just really fun because he's just like this old-fashioned guy just trying to make a living, and he's worth so much money, but he doesn't come across that way. He comes across as this guy who's really still trying to scrape together dollars to make his dream come true of whatever entrepreneurial thing he's doing. I found him very inspiring because he never let anything get in his way with all of the businesses that he tried.
I love it. Yeah. I think it's what people underestimate is the fascinating people we get to meet in our industry. I mean, you really do get to meet some of the most unbelievable and good and bad, right? Good and bad. But it's just, that's really cool. I appreciate that. So let's move on to O. So in your listing business, what's been the biggest obstacle you've had to overcome? This could be financial, emotional, confidence. Like what do you think has been that biggest obstacle to become the listing beast that you've become?
I think training the agents on the team to do everything the same way I would do it. I think that's the biggest challenge, is finding the people that are going to be coachable and do it the same way. So of course, we're always trying to protect the brand and we're trying to protect the customer service. So it's really getting the agents fine-tuned to do things the same way I would do them so that they are a better replacement for me.
Which is hard, right? Well, it's hard in two ways, because I think when we do this, right, when we're trying to scale anything, I had a coach and mentor once, and he said, well, if you were going to open up your business in China tomorrow and start your real estate team there, would you be able to do it? And that really made me pause and think. And I was like, no, I could barely do it, and I'm here. And so you have to start thinking through that whole process of going, how do we package Sandra's amazingness and go, everyone do it like this? And it's a lot of fun, but it's not easy. So I hear you. That is an obstacle. Let's go on to the D. If you could deliver one piece of advice that you would tell a listing agent or an aspiring listing agent out there, what would you tell them? What would be your main thing to let them know, hey, this is what I've learned and this is what you should do?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the same word I said before, which is consistency. I think that people always ask, what's the secret? What's the one thing that you do? And it doesn't really matter what that one thing is. Pick that one thing and just do it consistently. For me, it's a newsletter. For somebody else, it's going to a networking event, once or twice a month, or it's going to a mommy and me group, whatever it is, whatever that one thing is for you, just do it, and do it at a super high level and super consistently.
I love it. And Sandra, with your accounting background, are you tracking all of this in Sisu, Follow-Up Boss, Excel spreadsheets? Is it custom made? Like what's the infrastructure of keeping consistent and then also managing all this? What tech are you using?
Yeah, so we're in Follow-Up Boss. We've been in Follow-Up Boss for probably 10 years. Okay. And Follow-Up Boss is amazing. It really helps us stay organized.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, great. And maybe we need to talk offline, because I'd like a little help with getting to the next level of reporting. We do a lot of spreadsheets, but they're very manual labor. Okay. So from a reporting standpoint, we do a lot of spreadsheets.
Gotcha. Okay. And then the last one, which is my favorite part, is, so what are you excited about for the future? What's the next? Is it growing the team? Is it finding more talent? Is it expanding in other markets? Is it AI? What gets you excited about real estate and the listing world for the future?
Yeah, so we just hired our first director of sales. So that is super exciting for me. That way he can spend time around.
I'll give you the confetti. You deserve it. That's a big deal.
That was a long road to get there, but I'm super excited about that. And I think that's going to allow us to expand and continue to grow. We are, last year we expanded into some more markets. We went into a $3 million average neighborhood, which is super exciting. And we've gotten our first listings there. And now we're expanding again to the Boca office, which is, about 45 minutes away from our current office. So that should bring a lot more business and a lot more agents. And I love to be able to help agents and watch them grow.
I love it. And we'll have all of Sandra's contact information, so you can send her referrals. You can already tell the kind of quality person she is. And if you're looking to join a real estate organization, that would be one of my first stops if I was in anywhere in the Southern Florida area. And then, of course, we're sending her referrals. We know that she takes excellent care of everyone that she's working with, so make sure we do that as well. So to summarize this, Sandra, and to look at this as well, the last part that you said there that you're excited about now expanding into Boca, I just want to make sure everyone's clear, is the takeaways today were consistency, and you've got to give things time to be able to work, which he's explained to us, right? And then knowing when to pull the plug. But the reason you're able to expand and you own your own listing lead funnel is because you trust it, you've tested it, and now you can go into other areas with probably more confidence than most people could, going, I can go into this other area now because I've already done it. And what's different from this area, except, the neighborhoods are slightly different. I'm sure there's a lot of analytics that go into it and all that too. But right, would you say that's the kind of the best part, is it's like now there's the confidence there to scale, because if you could do it here, you can do it in other markets.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for being a listing beast, and thank you for inspiring all of our wonderful audience out there to become a listing beast just like you. So thank you very much. We'll make sure everyone has all of Sandra's contact information so they can connect with her. And we can't wait to see you with our next listing beast in the next episode. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Listing Beast podcast. If you got value from today's guest, take 30 seconds and share this with another agent who's serious about being a top listing agent. And if you're ready to take what you've heard today and actually have your own high converting, scalable listing system, book a free strategy session with my team at listingbeast.com. We'll show you how to go from good to unstoppable. I'm Brendan Bartic, and I'll see you next week right here on the Listing Beast podcast, where top agents come to earn bigger checks, generate more repeat and referral business from their database, and 10x their listing leads.